What a day. What a day indeed. Optus has handed all its competitors the best form of advertising it could ever do. A service that is not servicing. Not just phone, internet, landline, financial. All of a sudden all those FPOS machines with a Optus SIM card in them, complete no day or half a day of sales. Happened that it started about 4 a.m. Australian time and started to get a bit stable, a bit more online at about 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So from there, the whole morning trading of some businesses has completely been destroyed. If you're a morning coffee shop and you have a Optus SIM card in your point of sale or in your FPOS machine, you just got completely screwed over. I hope you can get some reparations from Optus regarding your loss of sale, or hopefully your personal work insurance may cover that as well. Personally for me, that meant my internet was down at home in the morning, and when I got to work, I actually forgot that my work phone, which is a landline number, redirects to a mobile number, and that mobile number is with Optus. This time about last year, Optus had their big data breach, which annoyed quite a lot of customers, myself included, servicing around 10 million customers, and today they were servicing around 10 million. I'm curious to see how many people they'll be servicing next week. As I said, this has been one of the biggest advertising booms for all the other telcos and phone providers in Australia, especially if they're not piggybacking off Optus. So Telstra, Vodafone, Boost, TPG, mobs like that are probably going to be laughing quite heavily with being that all of a sudden they look like perfect saviours for a company that failed to provide a service, especially when it's the number 2 biggest service provider in Australia. And this has happened especially after their 12 months ago with the largest data breach in Australian history, and now they've had the longest outage in Australian history, probably impacting also the most amount of people possible. So Optus has taken a fair few L's the last couple of years. Will it make people swap? Yes, no. Doesn't really matter if you're with Telstra or an Optus. If you're with Telstra, you do have the high potential that this very well may happen. But I find with Telstra, you're also paying a much larger cost. So with other people, I had about 4 people come in the store today all saying that with Telstra, my phone's broken. And I go, no, your phone's not broken. Optus is down. There is nothing you can do. One fella said he wanted to call him and complain to him. I said, you have a very slim chance of being able to do that right now, or for probably the foreseeable rest of the week, being that there's probably quite a lot of people in front of that queue. If you were with Optus and you were affected, like around 10 million people potentially were, I find that if you're an individual, there's probably not much you can do apart from my phone didn't work for half the day, my internet didn't work for half a day. But if you're a business that has a high turnover and you rely on Optus for your business, I'd definitely be chasing up some form of reparations, payment, compensation for your loss of income. As I said, business insurance may be able to cover some of that. Hopefully you can get it out of the company that had failed to provide you the service that you had paid for and then in turn cost you for the time. The other thing I find is with something like this going on, it certainly makes a cash-based society look a lot more appealing, especially when the flick of a switch, all of a sudden you can't pay for the simple things or the expensive things because your phone is down and you have no card access, or the provider has no card access, or the app doesn't work, or many other potential issues due to the internet. This is completely ignoring the potential health issues that have happened due to this. Hearing about various hospitals where they may not be able to contact staff for an emergency operation today, and all of a sudden they weren't able to send out the message, or the person wasn't able to receive the message. Granted, hopefully there's redundancies and backups for these communication systems in such mission critical locations. Melbourne trains weren't apparently operating, or they were operating very delayed times, which all of a sudden set out a whole bunch of people. If you were waiting on a medical test at 10 o'clock today and you were going to catch a train at 8 o'clock to travel into Melbourne, you would have been completely screwed. Alternative transport, you very well may have missed your appointment, which is not good at all. Even though I'm coming out with a bit of a mono-sarcastic tone, no, it's not good. The cost of a communication service shouldn't cost you your health. That is obscene. Some people may have medical alert systems in play where they push a button and it sends a text message or tries calling a call center, which then in turn informs the medical ambulances to help people. They may not have been operating. There might have been someone's mum, dad, father, or anyone in particular that required such a service might have found themselves stranded without it. Today's mishap with the communication system very well may have cost people their lives, which should not have happened. It should not be that way. Another point of view that I've heard is regarding network sharing between the major providers. I can understand that to an extent. One thing is all of a sudden, if Optus is down and their back end's down, and all of a sudden all the mobile services then roll over to using Telstra at a fee to Optus that the customer does not pay, all of a sudden their network that might be running at 60-70% capacity has all of a sudden been pushed to 120% capacity, and they suffer an outage as well, which then kills the whole communication network. So there is a bit of positive and negatives to providers sharing between one another. Granted, in some extent that would be a positive. I can imagine that for the healthcare, transportation to be very useful. Everyday people wanting to make a phone call, probably not a high priority. It would be good, but not necessary. If you're complaining that you couldn't watch your Netflix at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night, if the outage did continue that long, probably not the person that should be having to have their internet jumped over to another provider. An old lady living by herself that has a medical alert alarm, that has an Optus SIM card in there, if that rolls over to being Telstra temporarily at the cost of Optus, I don't see that being a problem at all. It's a very low bandwidth thing that may or may not be used, but that's for health reasons, not just purely entertainment and I've paid my bill, give me my damn service. That I can understand. At the same time, sometimes you just got to understand that things can potentially break. So a bit of a wild day with Optus. I'm curious to see what the overall outcome is going to be. I don't believe it's probably going to be another data breach. It seems too major for such a thing, where data breaches typically allow the system to keep running, not completely destroy the system. Where this seems like something's potentially failed, updated, hasn't updated, and then in turn has become broken. I'm curious to hear what's going to be the potential outcome or what was the cause of such a major communication failure in Australia. Probably the largest communication failure in history for Australia. Not sure where else it may compare to, but for Australia it's definitely up there with one of the largest failures. Anyway, that will do for today. So, Optus. 1 year ago, data breach. Today, pure outages. Curious to see what will happen in the future. Will this make you switch? Possibly. See how you go. Bye.